Hello, my name is Bianca McCullough and I will be speaking on the subject of algal toxins. I will be doing a brief overview on what algal toxins are, their detrimental effects on humans and livestock, the methods of quantification for said algal toxins, what causes algal toxin levels to increase in source waters, as well as the current methodologies that we employ to remove algae, cyanobacteria, and algal toxins from the water. What causes algal blooms? Well, as you can see, here is an overview of a lake, and as you can see, cyanobacterial blooms tend to occur towards coastal areas where the water is slightly more warm and where there's a lot less turbidity. Algal blooms are typically seasonal, and they're the result of warmer climates in combination with increased levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, which can be introduced by agricultural runoff as well as increased urbanization. Here we have a picture of a normal lake in winter. That same lake in the summer, you can see the entire surface of the lake is coated in algae. And ultimately what this does is, algae prefers the surface of the water due to the availability of light. However, it does tend to remove all of the oxygen from the waters that are beneath them. And this actually basically suffocates all the marine life that's in those same waters. There are several sources of eutrophication which contribute to these cyanobacterial blooms. There is the use of fossil fuels, the discharge from water treatment facilities, as well as discharge from urban areas, agricultural areas. There's natural sources of runoff, as well as construction and other man-made devices can exacerbate this problem. Common household detergents are often found to be high in nitrogen and phosphorus levels. Those feed algal blooms. The greenhouse effect certainly has had a marked effect on the number of cyanobacterial blooms in recent years. In the past, algal blooms have been treated with the use of copper sulfate. However, this causes those same cells to lyse those toxins into the water, and thus the toxins are fully immersed in that same water. Here we have a microscopic view of a cyanobacterial cell. Algal toxins are a generic term. It covers a number of chemical groups, which include cyclic peptides, alkaloids, and lipopolysaccharides. They remain in the cells, within the cell during the cell's lifetime, and then are released whenever that cell dies. These toxins can remain in the water for days, weeks, and even months. Cyanobacteria are further categorized into three main types of toxins. There's neurotoxins, germatoxins, and hepatotoxins. Hepatotoxins produce tumors within the liver and subsequent carcinogenesis. Neurotoxins have a marked effect on the nervous system, and germatoxins have irritating effects on the skin. Here, as you can see, sometimes health authorities have to shut down public beaches due to algal blooms. They do not want people to come into contact with these possibly cancer-causing, irritating toxins. Although algal toxins do have a marked effect on human health, really the most notable toxin which we've placed undue emphasis, not undue, but emphasis on is microcystins. Microcystins have been shown to promote tumor growth, and they are neurotoxin, and there has long been suspected a link between the high cancer rates in certain areas of China and presence of algal toxins in those waters. In addition to effects on human health, water can oftentimes have bad taste and odor constituents. These are often manifest in terms of like a musty or an earthy odor. This is correlated with the compounds geosmin and 2-methylsorbitol. And usually whenever there is an algal bloom, you'll notice an increase in these particular taste attributes. Here we can see, this is a fish kill. There's only one fish in this scene, but ultimately this fish basically suffocated to death due to the burgeoning bacterial load. Cyanobacteria have a multifold effect not only on humans but also on the production of livestock. Contaminated waters can be used to irrigate crops, and once those cyanobacterial cells are basically sprayed on the foliar applications or on the dermal tissue of fruits and vegetables, those cells can lyse, releasing those toxins which can then be ingested by livestock or humans. There are also instances where livestock can imbibe tainted source waters. The first documented case of this was in 1878 when a number of cattle ingested contaminated source water. There are a number of methods of detection for algal toxins, the first of which is HPLC quantification. Samples are purified and then run through an HPLC. There are a number of peaks that will load out onto a computer screen which at a particular retention time can correlate with a specific algal toxin. However, this particular technology has problems in that there are peak elution problems, and there's a number of, you have to kind of, background noise can be a problem, and really peak elution is the main problem with that method. GCMS has also been popular in terms of quantification. It's very sensitive, but the problem with using a mass spectrometer to quantify is that it only takes into account the entire algal toxin. If the toxin fractionates at all, it does not take into account those particular levels. So we found that the most accurate method of quantification is the ELISA. ELISA testing is an immunoassay test in which we're able to determine not only the levels of the entire algal toxin, but the fractionations therein. Currently, the most effective way at removing algal toxins is through water treatment. Algal toxins can be potentially expensive and complicated to remove, and current water filtration practices and treatment practices are not specifically designed for the removal of algal toxins. Sedimentation is the first step in the water treatment process. You'll have source waters that are pumped into these settling tanks, and dirt, leaves, gravel, things like that settle to the bottom of these tanks, where that portion can then be returned to the riverbeds to mitigate any kind of degradation of the riverbeds. From there, that water can be put through a process called coagulation and flocculation, and a coagulant, such as like a metal, iron or aluminum, is added to water, and those charged metal particles of iron or aluminum can then bind to other charged particles such as dirt to then induce precipitation, where those particles then fall to the bottom of the tank and can be removed. One of the last steps in the water treatment process is filtration. The water is then drawn through a tank filled with sand and activated carbon. This removes a lot of the bacterial cells and other miscellaneous particles, malodorous compounds. However, the diameter of the cyanobacterial cell is so small that it isn't necessarily an effective tool in the removal of cyanobacterial cells. Chlorination, we're most familiar with chlorine in terms of its application in pools. However, water treatment processes pump chlorine gas through water to disinfect the water, to kill bacterial cells, and really the use of chlorine has been fairly controversial, as well as the use of fluorine due to their adverse health effects and high levels but we've found that over the years, the levels, the advantage of using these compounds versus the disadvantages are just overwhelming. The most effective technology, emerging technology in the treatment of water is ozonation, and ozone gas is pumped through water, and ultimately it can attenuate viruses, it can kill bacteria, and it can even degrade those same toxins that we're most concerned with, microsystems and whatnot. But it is notable that ozonation is not effective at the degradation of the saxitoxin. Currently, the World Health Organization and the Environmental Protection Agency are the main characters in the regulation of bodies of water. The EPA placed algal toxins on its suspected drinking water candidate list in 1998. They funded a study in 2001 that came to the conclusion that roughly 80% of the source waters in the United States do contain algal toxins, and of those, only 4.3% were at levels above the level set by the World Health Organization, that being 1 microgram per liter. So in conclusion, algal toxins do pose a serious threat to human health. As global warming trends increase, we will continue to see rising numbers of cyanobacterial blooms in the news and around us. Exposure can cause a number of health problems, and this exposure can be a result of irrigation from contaminated waters, as well as just directly imbibing those contaminated waters and recreational type activities. Current methods of detection do include HPLC, GCMS, and ELISA. However, the ELISA testing seems to be the best for quantifying these compounds. Current water treatment processes are not specifically designed for the removal of algal toxins. However, there are promising treatments, such as that of ozonation, which seems to mitigate most all of the health risks associated with algal toxins.